Welcome to the It's Your Choice podcast, where we learn how to rewire our brains to live the life we desire. On with the show. Craig, can you really transform in an instant?
Yes, without a doubt. The way I know is that happened to me. So all that I will express in our conversation today is based on a living experience of that myself. And I was already going into the field of mental health and became both a clinical social worker and a psychologist. And that obviously influenced my work. And because of that, I became synchronistically a part of the emergence of a whole new understanding in the field that is now sweeping the globe and producing all kinds of results in a much more easy, simple way than the more conventional psychotherapy. Although there's value in that, this just accelerates it because we don't fall into the pitfalls of the old way of thinking. But yes, so the answer is yes.
Welcome to the show, Craig Polsfuss. Craig has had a profound personal awakening at the age of 28, after which he joined others in pioneering a breakthrough approach in psychology. His over a decade of training in advanced brain science and personal transformation program, and he is published in the professional journals. He introduces this in his new book, Reality-Shattering Insights. Get your copy today. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Um, oh, one other thing I might add there,
Hmm?
um, and I may repeat this from time to time today with you. When I express what I understand or that the fact that I had an awakening, I'm not asking anyone to believe me. And or when I teach what I learned from that, that's made such a profound difference in my life or the lives of my clients, I have to stop often, especially at the beginning of our relationship, and say, no, honestly, don't believe me. Find out for yourself. Listen, consider what I'm sharing, see from your own life experience. Try it if you haven't already tried it, or try it in a new way with a new understanding and see for yourself if what I'm saying isn't real, because that's what happened for me. I didn't just decide, well, I'm going to transform my life in an instant. No, I was pursuing something and I came to this point where all of a sudden that I'll sometimes describe it as I turned inside out. My consciousness, I turned inside out, and it correlated with many things I'd read about enlightenment and awakenings, and um, and then people I'd met and people I was about then to meet afterwards, and that just confirmed it. And I don't walk around going, "Hey, I'm enlightened. Look at me." It's like I avoid that, frankly. But I cannot not acknowledge, especially in a conversation like this, that well, that's the basis of what I'm talking about and from which I'm speaking. It's like I I was given the opportunity almost like to consider a world, and I opened my mind and heart to it, and I was sucked right into it. Not unlike a near death experience where people experience going through a tunnel and into a light, not unlike that at all. So I don't know, maybe I gave a big answer to your simple question, but there we go.
Well, I mean, I don't really think it's a simple question. Um, I mean, the answer is is kind of a yes, so that made it like a simple answer, but it's not just that simple.
Yeah.
Because as you said, I mean, it would be hard. I don't want to say it's impossible, but I can't just be sitting here and then say, tomorrow I'm going to be a new person. My life is going to be completely different, and I'm going to be exercising for an hour every day and studying another language for 30 minutes and never eating sugar again. And I think a lot of people, when we think about that, change in an instant or even change at all. And prime example, New Year's. Everybody makes those New Year's resolutions. I'm going to change. I'm going to do all of these things, and we think that it has to be this massive dramatic number of things, but really It's the small things that become the big things. So I
because
think
we give
like
life to them. We
it's my
magnify
mind,
it.
or if it's something, even when I say where people can relate, my gut feeling. And I've said to people for years, whenever you have that gut instinct, gut feeling, that gut instinct, that whatever, no matter how minor it is, we should follow that. And the more often we follow it, the more we become in tune to it, the more that we're aware. May not always be correct, or we may never know. But even a prime example that I give often is I was with a friend of mine, and we were going to go hiking in the mountains in Canada. And she said to me, she said, I just have a feeling I should get gas right now. But we have more than enough to get there and back. I was gonna wait, but I don't know. I just got this feeling something says I should just stop and fuel up now. And I said, well, just stop and fuel up now. We're not in a big rush. And while we were filling up with gas, the guy came out and started to change the price on the sign to increase it 10 cents a liter. Now, a lot of people are thinking that's no big deal, but it was just, again, it's that gut instinct when it says, I should do something. I should be aware of something. I should, or sometimes shouldn't do whatever. And it's following those that I think the more we start to do those little things, it'll eventually become more of those bigger and bigger things.
Some people might call that your higher consciousness beckoning you, calling you, drawing you to more. And that's to me why, unlike there is a realm of our everyday life where we can decide, I'm going to eat that and not eat that, and that works. But we're talking about is this more evolutionary, awakening, transformational experience and choices that puts us at that threshold of seeking a greater power, a greater experience, a greater knowledge that we don't know until we know it and receive it. So we're learning to tune into that part of our consciousness that is um, that is a receiver. Now, I hesitated there because I want to step aside for a moment and talk about my new book, and then I'll relate it back. So I just released a new book. It's called Reality-Shattering Insights, Begin Life's Journey. And it says on the cover, exploring the human ability to completely transform in an instant. And I just touched on one of those. Then I not only describe this in the book and give one particular, but some human examples. This is throughout history. This has happened. Human beings have the capability for this. Um, but I actually explain in the beginning of the book, I'm going to try to facilitate this through the book. And the feedback I've gotten is for many, many people, just reading the book produced all kinds of insight and even therapeutic change that I wasn't necessarily intending to produce.
Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know about the Mind Matters weekly newsletter that is full of actionable tips to help you rewire your brain to live the life that you desire. Sign up for it at sallypederson.com. And when you do, you'll get the top 5 brain hacks for peak performance. Again, you can get it at sallypederson.com. Now back to the show.
So I have 14 reality shattering insights as factors. And one of them we just touched on. So that's why I wanted to step aside and then step back. And that is that most people think the human mind is made to think. And it can think. And yes, in a sense, it's made to think. But its primary function is to be a receiver. We were born, had not developed any formal kind of thinking as a baby, and we were just receiving the life experience, the life intelligence that had created us and was coming into us. And then through time, it's with We were given a human body with a human brain that was made to be developed, and the thinking along with it, and all that started to come together, right? And then innocently, we can kind of get sucked into that and think, oh, we think we are who we think we are. And then if we think we are who we think we are, the way the mind works is we feel it. Oh, I'm a winner. Ah, I'm a loser. Ah, people love me. Yes, no. Oh, smart, stupid. We feel it. But that's just our built in guidance system showing us through a feeling what we've created in our mind. But it's not who we are. Who we are is the one coming up with what we think, right? And
Right.
that has unlimited possibilities. And but even then, well, I'm going to think up the best possibility I can. I'm just fine, but it's beyond that. It's more like when you, it's like you receive a deep, deep insight that reveals to you who you are. It reveals to you your heart and the direction that is perfect for you in your life that you may or may not have been aware of. But once it's revealed, it's obvious. It's like, oh, I'd love that. Yeah. Oh, the prime example I gave in my book is a man named Sidney Banks. And he was just a middle aged welder, not spiritually inclined, not religiously inclined, suffering from insecurity and low self esteem for a bunch of reasons I won't go into. But there came a moment where one of his friends said to him, as he was bemoaning to his friend about how insecure he was, and his friend said to him, Sid, I've known you for 13 years. You're not insecure. You just think you are. Sid stopped. He was done because he said, in that moment, I didn't hear just, Sid, you're not insecure. You just think you are. He said, I heard my first spiritual fact. He said, I heard, Sid, everything you've ever experienced, you've made up with your mind, with your thinking. And the ring of truth was so powerful in him that it was like, what? And it offered him so much hope because it said implicitly, you can be free from this suffering you've been in and awaken more into, well, then who really am I if I'm not who I think? And that's an amazing, another whole level of being that is available to us. And as he looked at that and considered that, his whole life changed. He had one of those awakening experiences. And then as a result of that, he began sharing his understanding. And it happened to be picked up by some psychologists, including me. And we brought it into the field of psychology, and it's going all over the world now, but it's not in the mainstream yet, right? But it's so backing up. So he, for a moment, was offered the opportunity to consider, Sid, you're not who you think you are. And he could have just went, of course I am. And of course I felt unlovable because I was adopted. And of course I feel insecure because I wasn't able to finish school. And he had all these reasons why he wasn't happy and in ways unfulfilled. But for a moment he was open to something beyond himself and what he thought at that moment. And he allowed that opening to be there, and it just flooded in. And you know, the thing about human beings, you can't unsee what you've seen. You
True.
can forget it, and you can, but you'll come back quicker, and something in you sees what you see and cannot forget it. And that helps us proceed further. It gives us hope. It helps us evolve in ways where it's permanent. It's permanent, real life change. Whether anybody else understands it, agrees with it, cooperates with it, likes it, it's that you're completely free from all of that.
I
So I
think,
hope I stayed on track.
yeah, no, there's no real track to be on. So, and
Okay.
I think though too, I mean, there's a few things. Is one is our mind will kind of mess with us. Like we'll have maybe a small experience, and but then the mind will be like, oh, that's, just a one time. That was a fluke. That was just that gut instinct. That's not really. And the brain will try to deter us for whatever reason, and some people say it's just, to protect us, to keep us safe, because in a way, when we have those types of experiences, and if we can't explain it, then there's something that it's like, how can I explain to other people when I can't even explain or understand myself? So how could it be real, or how, that becomes the problem of trying to explain things that are challenging to begin with. And when we're not even sure how to, or how it happened, or why, but just because it is such that feeling. And unfortunately, as human beings, even though we are so technologically advanced, it's amazing. Communication is not our strong point.
Yeah. You've hit on something that is a really important point that those of us who use this in our work, psychologists, mental health workers, life coaches, even teachers, we we say in our own way what you just said, which is we have a part of our personal mind that's always trying to understand and explain it and wrap our head around it. And this is something that's beyond your head that you quiet your mind, open your mind to, and then it fills your head with new insight. There's a place we have insights in our life, whether the little tiny ones like, oh, I remember where I left the keys, to, oh my gosh, I thought that person was horrible, but now that I've got to know them, they're wonderful. Or, my parent, I never had the parents I wanted. I never felt loved and understood. And then you get to a point as an adult, or especially maybe as a parent, and you realize, oh my gosh, they're just like me. They were doing their best. They did love me. And all of a sudden now all that disappointment turns to gratitude and love. So we can have insights at different levels that completely transform things. And so when I work with people, I'll explain that, and I'll say, so um, don't work so hard, relax. Don't try to wrap your head around this and explain it. Get it for yourself, and it starts with a feeling. Just listen for a feeling. Listen to what's behind my words that I'm trying to put into words. That's what's real. And as you get a feeling for it, it will make sense. And you still might not be able to explain it yet. That will come in time. But any explanation will be inadequate. I've got a little story here. So I live in a very unique situation out kind of in the country outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm in a multi-generational home situation where I have my home with my wife, and next door is one of my three sons with his wife and two kids. And so we get to see those two grandkids quite often. And the 6-year-old boy comes over, and he likes to come over um, and he wants to talk to me about God. And it's kind of interesting, like, oh, okay. So I do that. And he came over, this was a few weeks ago, and he said, can we do that? And so we closed the door and come in my office where, it's like, I don't know, maybe he thinks he's having a session with me like he knows I have with clients, right? And he starts asking me these questions. It's so interesting. This is almost going to be bragging about him. And at one point he stops me and he goes, oh, wait, I have a deeper question. So, oh, cool, what's that? And then he asked it and it was deeper. And I thought, how can I answer this in a way that a 6-year-old mind, now from his, maybe from his spirit, he's not 6-year-old, he's whatever, no age, right? But also he's kind of asking it through a 6-year-old brain and mind. And I tried to make this distinction. I said, okay, I can answer your question with how did I put it? The mental answer and the real answer. And I said, I'll explain the difference. I said, if you'd never experienced an apple and you said, Grandpa, what's an apple? And what is that? I could say, well, I could actually show you it. It's red. You cut it, it's white inside. There's seeds. It's sweet. It's tart. It's really good? Is this or that? That's the mental answer. The real answer is here, take a bite out of this, taste it, experience it, and then you'll know. And you might describe it very differently. So we're always faced with that. Like, even right in this very moment of life, am I experiencing, to what degree am I experiencing the real life? And to what degree am I experiencing the real life overlaid and shaped by my mostly unconscious thinking? So I'm getting back a world of struggle or a world of suffering or a world of who knows what. And it's
Mm.
not a judgment. This isn't saying you must think positive. It's just saying, understand this, and your natural wisdom will come out and go, oh, yeah, yeah, I always complain to myself about rush hour traffic. And I thought the traffic was creating my stress. It's my thinking. Let it go. And then I go into the traffic and if I start to get stressed, I don't blame the traffic. I go, oh, and I'm much more, see, I'm empowered by that. I'm freed up. And it feels my experiences, I can enjoy the moment being my authentic self more and more and more. And kind of a way opens up. Now, this first book I mentioned I wrote is the first in a series of four. And I'm calling that series The Vortex of Living Truth. And I later in the later books, will develop that understanding of here we are on this side of life. It's like a vortex, many vortexes actually. But like, no matter how much we awaken to ourselves and how it works and our capabilities and our all that, there's always more. And there's always more. But it's an organic thing. It's not like you can force it, but you can get in the way of, you can resist it, you can avoid it, but when you understand it and what it is and why it's there, it's like you would never want to resist it. Your example of the intuition before is an example of that. That deeper intelligence that we feel inside of us from a deeper place is beckoning us to go there, but it means turning our attention to that and away from what we were at in our head. And to fully do that, sit down and fully do that, could be called a practice of meditation. But operating day to day through our life, doing this, driving cars, whatever we do, we want to go into that state of meditation, but stay awake and operational in the world, right? So,
That is the ideal. And I mean, you did mention one thing too that I really want to kind of touch base on is it's the choice of our thoughts. And those thoughts lead to our feelings. And a lot of people will could say, somebody hurt my feelings. Well, it wasn't a choice. They hurt my feelings. It's how I felt. I didn't choose to feel that way. But in a way, we can kind of debate that too, because I can't control things that happen to me. The only thing I can control is how I respond. And yes, of course, I get angry at times and I get hurt, I get frustrated, I get all of those things, but I'm really learning to, when I feel those, to sometimes take a step back and think, okay, why am I feeling this way? A lot of times I have found when I get angry about something, it's somebody said something that maybe hurt my feelings a bit, maybe I'm not too happy about, but there's always a little bit of truth to it, and that's why I get a little bit angry because it stings a bit because it was, maybe not truthful, and it could have been something that I did or said, and it wasn't that great, and they're like, "Yeah, it's okay," and I'm like, "Okay," and then I'm like, "Oh, oh, yeah," because maybe it wasn't the best that I could have done or something like that. But another example too is going back to driving in traffic. When people get angry, you drive in traffic for those who drive every day, whatever it is, an hour to work and an hour home. You always know that's going to be traffic, but you could turn on some music and just relax and enjoy and let your mind wander. Or you can sit there and think, "Oh, this traffic, these stupid drivers, blah, blah, blah," and then you start, to get angry and more angry, and especially if you're driving to work, then by the time and then you start to think about going to work, those same people you see all the time, that person you don't like very much, and now by the time you get to work, you're just angry, and people are and you're just like, "I'm just in a bad mood." But you kind of made yourself in that bad mood by the thoughts that you chose to have instead of trying to be, "Oh, okay, well, there's traffic. Okay, great. Well, I know there's traffic. I'm gonna listen to a podcast. I'm gonna turn on some music to make me feel good. I'm gonna think of, oh, this weekend, I'm going to do this great activity, or maybe I should plan to do something for my spouse or with my kids or my parents." And it's where you're in your car, you're stuck, but how you're choosing to think and use your mind is a choice. If you start to get that negative feeling, recognize it and be like, no, thank you, brain, for sharing. But no, I'm choosing to focus on something good, something delightful.
Yeah, you're hitting a lot of really important stuff there that if we are, when you really are honest, when you reflect on your mind and your experience, it's like I think we have to see and admit we are always choosing. We are always choosing, but we're not, most people are not very conscious about it, right? And that's the part. Oh, I want to be more conscious of not just falling into the habit of bumming myself out about the traffic when it's like, because the deeper wisdom shows us life is an amazing gift. Who be with it in its purest form is just a blessing, a miracle, kind of, and like, oh, that's, and it's the best. I almost want to say better than the best feeling. And deep down, we know we're made for that and we want that. And in a way, we're trying to get there, but we're not doing it from a very conscious place, which is innocent. Well, there I am upset in the traffic, and it's like, well, if I knew better, I'd do better. So it's innocent. At the same time, we're responsible. We chose those thoughts. We created that misery, whether we know it or not. Now, as we start to wake up to it, there's that important choice to like, I want to know the truth. And when I hear it, I'm willing to get humble and admit it and consider a different choice. Uh, and there are seem to be infinite levels from what I can see and as I'm growing of being awake to that and making the wisest choices. But what happens is less and less do I have to stop and go, okay, what's the wise choice here? And more, it's just like in the flow. It's obvious, obvious, obvious. And the more, just like we learn to balance our bodies when we're young and walk and not fall over. Similarly, we learn to be balanced in that. And if we start to tip over, there's a sense of whoop, and we kind of, um, catch our balance, so to speak, psychologically in that and stay in it. So in a way, we're living it and the level we are, and another way we're practicing it and getting better at it. And when the student's ready, the teacher appears, right? The new knowledge we're ready for might have been there right in front of us all the time, but through this podcast, oh my gosh, this kind of resonates. I've heard this stuff before, but today it's resonating and it's calling, it's that deeper part of ourselves saying, yeah, you're ready for more, whether we know that or not yet, right? And so you're encouraging people, and so am I, to like listen to that. Listen to, maybe you find a new interest or a renewed interest coming up in this conversation that you want to explore. And this is how powerful we are. Wherever we put our attention becomes our reality. So put your attention, and who am I to tell you, but this is already in you. Put your attention in the direction that serves you the most in the best way you can understand. And what's that? In the way I can feel the best, and not my concept. Oh, I want to feel rich and have a lot of money, and I want to feel popular and a lot. That's all okay. It's not wrong or bad. It's just like, but that's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a part of you that when you feel it in this way, it feels like home. It feels like, oh, I've always known this. I'm coming home to what I've always known. And now the more I'm aware of it, I can feel it more. I'm more dedicated to it. So I want to put my attention there. I want to, in a sense, meditate on that. And so I will willingly do that more and more. And what happens then, where I put my attention is given my consciousness, my thoughts, and that the feedback is I experience what that is. So I'm just being shown what I'm creating via my own power of thought. Um, I hope this is making sense to some of your viewers. I think it
I
will.
hope so too. I hope so
Yeah.
too. And it's just like as you said, it's not easy to begin with. Nobody's just going to generally wake up tomorrow and just be in tune with everything. I mean, even people who have been in this field and doing these types of things for decades still have days or moments of challenges and things. And especially the older we are, I think almost a little bit the harder it is in a sense, only because if we've had these kind of negative thoughts, beliefs, and things going on in our head that become so natural, if they've been there for 30, 40, 50 years, it takes a little bit longer to have that awareness, to stop it, to change it, where when we're younger, if they've been there for maybe 20 years, it's still a while, but we might be able to to figure them out and fix them a little bit more. But I also think too, it's not about not getting mad, not getting upset, not being disappointed. It's recognizing that and saying, "Okay, well, why am I feeling this way? And then what can I do to make it better?" Or is it just a natural response to this? And what, as you said, like, what do we want? How do we want to live? And somebody's not going to be blissfully joyful every day, 24/7, because I know some really happy people and they still have moments of frustration and anger and disappointment. And that, I mean, that's just part of life. That's part of having feelings and emotions, but we can't recognize joy and bliss if we don't have moments of sadness and disappointment, but we want to keep those moments to a minimal as best we can. um and of course some things are more challenging than others, and those feelings come back. I recently lost my mom, and I think about the good times, try not to focus on the not so great parts. And some days I'm great. Things are good and it's all good. But then sometimes out of nowhere will be that moment of something. And I think, okay, it's okay to have the moment, but now let's refocus on the good, the better, the other great parts. And I can't remember who it was that had said it. And you might know, I'm sure there's lots of people that have said, but the brain will, when it comes to good times, the brain remembers it almost as if it was better than what it was. And when we go back and think about things, and if it was bad, for some reason our brain and perspective of it was actually worse than what it was.
Mm.
What do you agree with that, or what do you think about that? I can't remember who I've heard that from.
Yeah, I could see that. I haven't specifically heard about that, but I can say this I do have a background. I spent a decade in an advanced brain science personal transformation program, learning about their applications related to the brain. And I can say this that, and this is just short, that this could be a whole course. We have three brains in our head. As you could also say there's the gut brain and heart brain. I'm not going to go there, but in the head, there's three brains. And the lower brain is the survival brain. People often hear about it as the reptilian brain or whatever. And that was the one that came online first, if you believe in evolution, or even if you don't, in human development. That, of course, when we showed up in physical bodies on the planet, and we looked around and there were always predators, we had to survive physically. So that was the first brain that developed. And its other big focus is procreation. So it's sex and procreation and survival. And its logic, which makes sense from just that perspective, is sameness equals safety. So if I found a way to stay in my cave or go out in the forest only at a certain time in a certain way, and we got the food and we brought it back and we're good, good. Now keep it that way. So there's a huge, powerful part of us in our lower brain that's trying to get us not to change. Super short and simple. The second brain is more about, let's just call it the rational ability, and the higher brain is about the higher consciousness and wisdom and love, and it integrates the lower brains. And that the wisdom recognizes no change. It's all about change. It's always changing, So I need to find a way to recognize that and embrace that. And in fact, ride that, use that. So my second book is called Your Universal Powers. Life backs you up. When we start to see there's, this is speaking like what you were saying a few minutes ago about, well, there's always the human moods and the ups and downs and that no matter how old you get. Yes, absolutely. But the good news is there is a threshold you can go over, which is the one I went over, where you know something now beyond a shadow of a doubt, capital K knowledge, and you know it in your soul, in your heart, in your being. It's not just well, I'm convinced in my mind. It's that too, but it's way more real and deep than that. And then, yes, the continuing evolution awakening happens. And one of the byproducts of that, or results of that, is we can go through those human experiences and moods and stuff with more grace and ease, more acceptance. Oh, here I am. I still get upset with, I don't know, the traffic. And uh, there's a little saying with us who do this work, like, don't judge your progress by your favorite problem. That we're, as we awaken, it's not about being in a constant state of bliss, although that is, I think, potential, but I don't know. That's way high, but it's more about learning to go through all the various thoughts and experiences and realities we go through with grace and more in the state of flow, just in the moment, in that part of us that no matter what has been there, it's been able to experience it and go through it. Because here we are, we're still here. So
Mhm.
even our worst challenges, we maybe didn't think we overcame but here we are, and our life moved on. And whether we know it or not, we extracted something from that has benefited us. And we're evolutionary beings, and there's something in us that cannot be stopped. If those who are listening that have a Christian background, that touches on what Christians would call having dominion. That God made us in his image and likeness, imbued us with his same powers, his children, but we have to realize that and get with the teacher, the big teacher, right? But of course, we're going to have dominion over this creation, then, meaning no reality or experience can ultimately defeat who we really are in our consciousness and our experience of that. And the more we rise into that experientially, then we can go through anything, even our own death, even painful experiences. And when we will, and then we'll leave this earth, and then we'll find out, is there a next and what is it? But I love that awakening into that. And of course, the moment I experienced this back, my awakening, when I don't know if I mentioned I was 28 years old, um, the two things that were connected that I absolutely knew I wanted to do. One was go deep, stay with this and go deeper into it. And the other was get it to people who want this. I didn't want to force it on anybody who wasn't interested, but I knew there are people thirsty for this out there. And that's what I've done. I've responded to that. And one of the big areas I brought that to people through is the field of mental health, right? So I've done therapy and marriage counseling and all that kind of stuff. But I'm also a coach. I've worked with businesses and leaders, and I'm actually published in professional journals applying that understanding to leadership and high performance. Um, but no matter, as we get more in touch with that, something I'm trying to put into words that I can't ultimately, but hopefully your viewers and listeners will resonate with, get a feeling for. It can only enhance your life. It might rock your boat in the short run. Like, oh my God. I remember when I first started bringing this into high level, C-level executives, I was surprised at how many of them ended up quitting their jobs and going and doing something completely else. They and what I surmised from that, and then heard from a couple directly, but mostly was they had the concept of this is what with success in life, and they had the ability to rise to it and be stressed in it and make it successful. And they were just, and it was just like, wait a minute, this really isn't me. And they were able to just go whew, and be freed from that. And it made sense, but at first I didn't anticipate that. It made sense once it was happening, but it's like, oh my gosh. Um, so whatever comes out of that, at first it might rock you, but oh my God, this job isn't for me. What am I going to do? Yeah, but oh, when you find a next step, it'll be like,
Right.
oh, great, and it'll be freeing.
No, I think it's true. A lot of I mean, I have conversations lots of times with people about redefining success. Like, what is success? Because I don't think success is being super famous, super rich, having a ton of materialistic things, and that's great for some people. That is success for them. But if we look at a lot of very wealthy people, how many of them have lost relationships, not in contact perhaps with their children, divorced, drug problems, alcohol problems, like a number of things. Of course, not all of them, but some of them do because, in my opinion, if those are issues, you're ultimately not happy, you're not fulfilled because being wealthy does not mean having a kind of rich, successful life, and it's a combination of things, and realizing that having a bunch of materialistic stuff and science has proven, statistically, it's been proven, does not make people happy. It doesn't, otherwise we wouldn't be having all these issues. Now, for some it does. For some, that's their drive, that's their goal, and that's great. But we need to look at us as an individual and think, what is important to me? What do I enjoy? What do I want to do? And really, like, what do I need to live comfortably? And where can I do that? So, it might not be that you have to be in a big city that's super expensive, that costs a lot of money, and you could do a different job somewhere else that you enjoy doing and cost of living's less. Like there's so many different things. But if people kind of got away from marketing, which has done wonderful, it does what it has meant to do to cause people to buy products. But once we realize that we don't need a lot of stuff and what makes us happy and what we would like to do, I think, people would be a lot happier and a lot better and realize that we really do need to look at our life and say, what is my definition? And to sit in silence and think about it. If I could have a life like whatever I wanna do, what would I do? If I didn't have to worry about money. Obviously, I understand that we need to make so much money. We need food, clothing, and shelter and things like that, but how big of a home do you really need? How many clothes do you really need? A lot of those things, and then what ultimately will make us happy, because I think part of the reason why we only have these moments of that instinct, that gut feeling, that kind of connection is because we are also so busy trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to survive, trying to make everything work, that sometimes when we take that step back, we realize that some of those things that we're doing is causing us more problems and taking us away from what we really truly want. And I think with meditation, it helps to kind of quiet the mind and think about what we want in life and where we're going and to have those connections and then those things come to us. As you said, it's not the thought of, "Oh, I want a million. If I had, $1 million, I would do this and this." It's not what you have because when you ask people when they made their first million, they're like, "It didn't my day didn't change," unless they won the lottery. But they're like, "My day didn't change, my things didn't change." And then it's like, "Oh, well, great, where's the next million? Where's the next 10?" So it really is what if you had that, what would you do? How would you live? How would you spend your days? Who would you spend them with? And those are the things. It's not that if I made $1 million a year, it's what would I do with that money? What would it give me in things of like time and opportunity?
And you're touching on a simple but very profound paradigm shift that I think is needed and coming in human evolution. And we're touching on and for individuals like me and the Sid that I mentioned and others, um, it's happened or is already happening, but I want to take a moment to describe it before we run out of time. And that is,
Pardon the interruption. If you're liking the show so far, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow the show and the channel and to the show.
if it's true that what we're experiencing is a projection of our own thinking, that we've chosen, consciously or not, that we've chosen it, and consciously or not, that it's actually thought, it's going to appear to us to be real and feel real. So that traffic really is stressing me out. And in my world, it is my psychological world. That person really did offend me or hurt my feelings. And in my world, but when I start to see, wait a minute, all this stuff that appears to be out there and have a power over me, the outside in paradigm, it explains a lot. Well, why people go to war and all that. But it's like, what if it's what Craig's trying to say? Because Craig would say, well, then how do you go out into that and find your happiness? How do you go out into that and find yourself? You're the one behind it, projecting it. You have to go back. You have to go within. You have to, it has to flip over to be an inside out paradigm. And then I can find not only what I've been looking for inside of me, but I'll realize as I do, it's always been there. I've always had it. I just forgot. I just got distracted. And this is what every human being does. It's our human journey. So it's not one of going, boy, finally I woke up and look at all those stupid people who haven't. It's love and compassion. Oh, I understand now. You just don't understand yet. You can and will, and maybe I can be a part of you understanding, but maybe I can't. I don't know. Uh, it depends. But that paradigm shift to, oh my gosh, the illusion, the great illusion, Maya, as they talk about it in Eastern thought, is our thought, our mind can, through thought, create an appearance of an experience that seems to be separate from us and have an outside power. It's an, but it has no outside power. People's minds are so healthy and powerful that for whatever reason, they can think themselves into a state of deep depression and be immobilized, feeling powerless, innocently using their own power against themselves. But if they really want to change and are open, and you can get this through, and they reflect, and they don't just believe you, that's not enough. And they don't just understand you intellectually, that's not enough. That can help. but they start to listen and go inside and start to feel it inside of them, guess what? Now the outside in is inverting to inside out. And it just, I like the feeling of that. I like the results of that. I want to come back for more and drink more from this vortex, this well that keeps offering me more. Oh my gosh, Ken, is the very life that's here that I came from, I guess, that created me, is it trustworthy? And what if I actually trusted it? How do I trust it wisely? Oh, maybe I would love to trust my life, but I've trusted it this way and I got burned. Yeah. Okay. So it's a matter of learning how to access the wisdom that can keep us and protect us as we learn how to really trust it. I mean, I've gone in a direction now, shifted some with my work and trusting that drew you in. And I suppose I'm a correlate to something in your life that when we're ready to meet, here we are. Isn't this cool? And even if it's a bad experience, we can go, oh, well, okay, kind of like I accept that and maybe take some time to go, well, how can I make the best of that? And
Hmm,
then you turn, even if it was a lemon, you turn it into lemonade. You can. That's a
that's
choice.
great.
It's a choice, and then you go
That's
further.
the choice. That's the choice, and changing sometimes our perspective on things, trying to find silver linings, like, I don't like the word failure. I think there's many ways that things don't work out. There's been many things that I've done that I don't wanna do again, but because I've done it a way that didn't work, I have learned I need to try it a different way or go about it differently. So again, it's the perspective that it starts with for people who are kind of just beginning and just thinking and they're listening and I think they're like, but how do I start? I think it's kind of that looking inward, but what do you want? Changing your perspective, trying to change how we respond and react to things. And the next time, you see that person that you don't like, instead of right away getting that, "Ooh, I don't like that person," to be thinking, maybe it's also the response of your energy that is going out.
And even if you do find yourself, like a lot of times as people expose themselves to what I'm teaching, they'll still have their old habitual patterns, but now they'll have a like, oh, look at that. Oh, that's my thinking. And
Mm.
maybe not even, oh, that's me. That's old me. And some people go, oh, that's old me. But it's like, oh, that's my thinking. And they're just more in a observational pause, which allows them to go, oh, well, okay, so there's an acceptance of that's my old habit. I created it. And, but I, but if I react to it like it's real and an enemy, then I'm giving it actually power. So it's like, oh, okay, I'll take my attention off of that and put it where I want. Oh, so I'm not perfect yet, but I like what I'm seeing and learning, and I like how this feels. And then my attention just gently goes there more and more and more. It's no big forcing myself to concentrate on that, forcing myself to personally remember that. That is built into us to remember it more organically and to go there more it's kind of like when we get out of our way, it will take us. And this would fit with the Christian thing too, which is um, we need a savior, and there is a dynamic in life there's a dynamic giving us a breath right now. It's saving us for another moment, giving us a breath. Ooh, and it's giving us way more than that. So, what if I got interested and explored that? I never thought of that. What could that open up to me? Then it
Right.
becomes an interesting adventure, huh? And like I like what you say, not just a string of failures. And like, yeah, failure is just um, is actually succeeding. If you see, I'm always succeeding in learning how to learn and extract good things from whatever happens.
Absolutely. That's true. Well, Craig, before we wrap up here, just one more time, what is the name of your book? And if people want to get in touch with you, where are the best places for them to connect with you?
This is the book, Reality-Shattering Insights. If you put that in Amazon or my name, it'll just pop right up. And
Perfect.
my, I believe you see my name there on the Zoom. Just CraigPolsfuss.com is my website. And you can reach me through that, which is Craig at CraigPolsfuss.com. And I'm not, I mean, I don't want to, how do I put this? I'm not looking for a bunch of clients.
Okay.
Um, I if if you feel moved to contact me, feel free, and I'm not totally closing the door. I'm more about getting this understanding out now more through my books, because the others are coming in the next few months, and through online podcasts and other maybe discussions where I can start sharing this with people and they can have a benefit without just meeting with me personally. So
That's perfect. Well, we'll make sure to put the link for the books and things in the show notes for people. And I just want to thank you again for your time today and for everybody who's listening or watching. You may want to rewire your mind. You may not. You may want to redesign your life. You may not. But remember, it's your choice.